Welcome back to Tabletop Titans and another Titan Tactics. The Las Vegas Open is the premier event of the International Tournament Circuit, otherwise known as the ITC. It also marks the end of the competitive season and ultimately will crown this year's ITC champion. It's a veritable plethora of who's who in competitive Warhammer and also brings in thousands of tabletop game enthusiasts of many game systems. I'm going to be taking you through some of the overall patterns that we're seeing in this year's Las Vegas Open 40k champions, and also take a dive into some of the lists we think are most emblematic of where the game is at the end of this season. Let us know in the comments below what you liked and what you are playing as we round out this Nephilim season. So at this point, the full roster of players and armies for the Las Vegas Open is now open, and we're taking a look at the data. Big shout out to Tanos82 on Reddit. My apologies, I'm getting the username wrong, but they have a post where they actually pull some of the data, as much data as that they had at the time of report. This is from 834 results out of 966. Keep in mind, this is whatever people have self-reported at this point. There are going to be some adjustments, especially as people change things up until the last second. But given this information, let's take a look. The most represented faction, as is appropriate for 40k, is the Adeptus Astartes. I say Adeptus Astartes because here we're looking at all of the Space Marine armies. So Codex, Codex supplements, as well as the Grey Knights. This is actually going to make up 17% of the lists, which is obviously a big subsection. 36 of these players, probably the biggest group, is going to be Blood Angels, which makes sense. They have very strong secondary game. They're very mobile. They are easy to approach and paint and all that good stuff. So they're easy to get on the table. And ultimately, they are going to be hurt soon as we move into the new season, so I think people are also trying to enjoy them while they can. After that, we see Grey Knights, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, and Templars all sitting around the same amount, with a big drop-off after that into the other Space Marine chapters. Next up, the second largest group of players is another Armor of Contempt army. This is Heretic Astartes, in this case including Thousand Suns, Death Guard, and Chaos Space Marine. So between these two ancestors, about a third of the games are going to be played using Armor of Contempt, so pretty interesting there. These Heretic Astartes army make up about 15% of the playfield, and the largest subgroup among them is, of course, the Emperor's Children, which have been absolutely killing it this competitive season with the use of amazing Noise Marines, fantastic scoring, lots of utility and fight first, fight last mechanics, as well as, of course, the still allowed Supreme Command detachment of Abaddon. More on that later. Eldari, Votan, Tau, Tyranids, Custodians, and Demons all have about the same amount of players. We're looking at between 40 and 50 at time of reporting, so pretty interesting there. Also worth noting the fact that Adeptus Sororitas, so Sisters and Necrons, are both sitting at about 4% of the players, which is, in my opinion, pretty staggeringly small given how hyped up everyone was at the beginning of the year. Important to mention, we're talking about competitive lists here. We're going to be looking at some of the best players lists, but ultimately this brings about so many players. This is almost 900 players that it feels like we should be seeing more of a spread and kind of people taking their army, what they think is interesting. And so it's pretty fascinating that they have such a small percentage of the play space this Las Vegas Open. Of course, the big boogeyman this year around has to be the Flamers of Tzeentch. These wildly undercosted, extremely mobile, extremely lethal firing platforms are seeing a huge amount of coverage in chaos lists of all sorts. We of course know that they are going to be nerfed following this event, but the Las Vegas Open is still using the Nephilim rules with the previous balanced data slate. Interesting to note that 80% of Chaos Demons lists have these Flamers in them, and also, perhaps more interesting, 59% of Thousand Suns lists also include these Flamers. This is probably one of my top picks for lists that could win the whole event, and we'll take a look at that soon. Another overall observation, which we've seen for a little while now, Tyranids definitely have shifted away fully from Leviathan. Lots of Kraken builds with many Ravagers inside of them, and of course, Zoanthropes all over the place because they have yet to be nerfed. So those are some overall views on the current state of the game and where the lists are. Let's dive on into just a few lists. We've taken a selection of lists that we think are most emblematic of where the game is at currently at the end of the season, and also combined with players we think are likely to win it and going to be in the running. So obviously there's a lot of great players and great lists that aren't included in here. But if you do know these people, let us know in the comments below, and we're happy to chat. So first up, we have Vic Vijay, who's currently #1 ITC with his Thousand Suns and Demons. This is one of those lists that I mentioned, which I think is just absolutely devastating. Thousand Suns, very strong position right now, made stronger by the addition of a Tzeentch detachment. This list has all the fixings, of course, with Armon on disc, Exalted, Sorcerer on disc, and Infernal Master, backed up by 6 units of 5 rubrics. We haven't put all the details here, but they have many of the different war gear upgrades, weapons, icons, all that good stuff. We, of course, see the signature 10-man Terminator block, very tough to kill, very maneuverable. And then it's on to Tzeentch Vanguard. Of course, the Fate Skimmer, very popular choice. I'm a big fan because they basically can unlock a lot of the firepower in the form of mortal wounds that a Lord of Change would give you, but they also give you the teleport with the stratagem, just very flexible, character blockable unit. And of course, backed up by 13 Flamers of Tzeentch. This is a very powerful list, backed by a strong player, so honestly, it's one of my top picks to win the LVO this year. Next up, we're taking a look at Jack Harpster's list. He was no stranger to the tournament scene. He's been absolutely ripping it up this tournament season, especially at the GW sanctioned events, basically winning many of them, each time playing a different faction, last time famously so playing Harlequins, but today he's on to Blood Angels. This is a all-gas, no-breaks list with no less than 3 units of 7 Sanguinary Guard, 3 units of 5 Death Company, and of course all the extra supporting melee characters. It's all aggression, it's going to have very strong secondaries, it's going to get tabled and still win games, and it's just very well positioned in the current meta, especially to get around some of the scariest things in the game. So for example, Tyranids, this list is going to try to hide and then strike first and strike last. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how this performs. Bit surprised by the pick over something like, I don't know, Harlequins, but should be cool to see. Another Art of War member, of course, we have John Lennon, currently number 5 in the ITC. This is a Kraken list, and it's pulling out all the stops. We have basically 2 detachments. We're not going to go over the details of how they break down here, but all you need to know is that it's got 2 units of Tyrant Guard blocking, 2 winged Hype Tyrants, it's got 2 units of 3 Zone Thropes, it's got a couple units of those Ravers that we mentioned, along with a unit of Warriors. Of course, with Leviathan getting hit back in the fall, we're seeing this shift away from Warriors onto Raveners, which in turn means a shift from Leviathan over to Kraken. So he's taking advantage of all of that. He's got the Parasite for that amazing scoring, Fire Force for giving some move blocking in here. It's a very strong list. It's going to take a skilled general, I think, to take it all the way to the end, but John is nothing if not that. Next up, we have Anthony Vanella's list. Super nice guy. We had the pleasure of playing at last year's Warhammer finale in the US, and it was a ton of fun. He's a great guy. And today he is here with his Chaos Space Marines. This is Emperor's Children with Abaddon, as I mentioned earlier. Very emblematic of the way the season is going. So Supreme Command of Abaddon with a full detachment of Emperor's Children, focusing on some of the amazing powers they have here. He's got the extra Demon Prince, which I like. You have some psychic scoring unlocked there. The big block of 10 Terminators, still as of yet unnerfed. The characters in there, such as the Master of the Executions for the interventions, fight last. And 4x5 Noise Marines with Power Fists and all that good stuff. These are just very strong all-around units with objectives secured. They can fight for themselves and has just enough killing power at range to deal with threats you need to deal with. This, I think, is another list that, in my opinion, is in the running to win the whole event. It's going to be interesting to see how Anthony does. Last up, another name not uncommon to this competitive season, Marshall Peterson, known best for his Necrons, where he's been absolutely tearing it up, has made the switch over to the Leagues of Votan. Today running a very interesting list. I like it. It's not too skewed, but it definitely hits very hard. Some features include lots of abilities to ignore cover, giving access to Auspex, Scan Strat for those nasty flamers that are dropping in. And it really focuses on a melee with the Chronos Hegemony League ability. This is going to give +1 to hit and attack on the turn in which you charge, and access to exploding 6s. To support this, of course, he does have 3 units of 5 Berserks, supported by a number of great characters such as the High Call and the Chip. He does and packs the mobility in with the Sagittars and the fast Optic Bikes, ignoring cover. Overall, very strong list. I would love to watch a game or two of Marshall playing this, so hopefully he'll make it to the stream table, or I can catch that afterwards. So there are just a few of the lists that we are going to be seeing at the Las Vegas Open, piloted by some of the best players in the game. Of course, it's going to be very exciting to see what happens. It's going to be streaming all over the place, so definitely check that out. I'll be bringing my Harlequins, John's going to be bringing his Ynnari. We're just excited to play and kind of close out this Nephilim season. So in closing, of course, we have lots of Armor Contempt, lots of Marines, lots of Chaos Space Marines, and of course, a smaller section of the playfield, but still very powerful, things like Tyranids, definitely going to be making an appearance this tournament season. So lots of exciting stuff. Let us know in the comments below what you've ended up with at the end of this Nephilim season. That's going to be it for me. I'll catch y'all next time on the tabletop. Bye!